This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with guitarist Trace Foster of the all-star rock and roll act Close Enemies. Today we're talking about the self-titled debut by Close Enemies. It came out on March 13th through Virgin Music Group. Before we talk about the music, tell me how this project came to be.
Well, actually, thanks for asking. I had suffered a very tragic medical thing in my life, and I didn't know if I was going to survive. And when that happens to you and you come out on the other side and you realize that you made it, it really changes the way you think about life. And I had spent the 80s in bands, and I was like, really happy, and then got dropped when Nirvana came out. And my whole life, I just don't want to do this anymore. And then when I got really sick, I realized I still have something musically to say. And, I'd worked with all the biggest artists in the world, with Aerosmith and, AC/DC and all these people. So I knew everybody that I wanted to be in a band with. And I called up a friend of mine in Atlanta, Georgia, that I'd worked with in the 80s. And I said, hey, I got to do one more thing in my life. I just feel like, there's a reason I'm still here. I want to do this. So we started writing songs. And after about, a week, sending stuff back and forth. I'm in Nashville. He's in Atlanta. I said, we need to up our game. So I said, let me call Peter and see if he would listen to this stuff. And I sent Peter like 2 or 3 songs, and it didn't take him long at all before he was on the phone going, I want in. This is amazing. He said the same kind of vibe. He's like, we're not getting any younger, and I feel like we all have something to say still, And so we started writing together, and then I'll fast forward a little bit, a different drummer, different bass player, and it didn't really work out. So Peter's like, look, Tony Brock. And as soon as he said Tony Brock, I said, the Tony Brock? I was like, there's no way that Tony Brock, I'm just like, this is amazing. And he's like, yeah, we've been looking for a project. And I said, wow, this is going to be great. And the guy we had playing bass decided he just couldn't, because of his schedule, he wasn't going to be able to do it. So Peter had called me, and I was in Las Vegas working with Tom Hamilton with Aerosmith. I was teching for Tom, actually. And the band's getting ready to go on. This is the truth. I'm looking at Tom. He's putting his ears in and getting ready to go. I'm ready to give him a bass. And Peter's like, we got to find a new bass player. And I just looked at Tom and I went, I got him. I said, I know the guy that we need to be in this band. So after the show, I went, I told Tom I want to meet you tomorrow, So I went to his hotel. I gave him a couple songs, and like the next day he calls me, he said, I'm in. So we went to Boston and started playing together, and that's all it took. Once we started playing together, it was just magic. Jimmy Page said once, and it's true, he said that when they all got in a room and started playing together, there was just that thing. The Allman Brothers, they've said it too, where you don't realize just how good something can really be until you hit that downbeat, and it's just your life changes. And I remember the first thing we did together, everyone's looks, there's just like, ear-to-ear grins, and it was like, okay, this is something really, really good. Sorry for the long-winded story, but there you go. That's it.
So did you have an album's worth of material done before bringing in Tom at the end?
Well, yes and no. Not really an album's worth. What we did was, it was really interesting because, we've all done this for so many years that we realize, like Tom said it best in an interview when he said, we all know how to be perfect bandmates, which, a lot of times that's the problem. Van Halen did this. Everybody's name was on the writing credits. Everybody got an equal share. So with our friend Gary, who still writes with us, he can't tour with us because he broke his back. He's not really able to, to do what we do. So he just sits and writes with us. But we're all 6 equal parts. So that way, not one person is like, well, you're driving a Ferrari, I'm driving a Volkswagen. It's just because it is everybody. You could get 5 different guys to play the same song, it's going to sound completely different. So we were able to create this thing that, even though the song was done, when Tom came in and him and Tony started playing it, oh my gosh, I'm telling you, talk about a rhythm section. It was funny because Tony's like, I'm going to call this the Chain Gang. We're like, why? He goes, because we have the same chain on. And they did. It was so funny. So those guys, it's just, so at that point we're like, okay, so we started, I would bring in a lot of ideas. I would bring in this idea that I had, a snippet of it. This is, guys, I've got this, I've had it for a while. The song Rain, which is probably my favorite song on this record, came in. I had that little picky verse part and a couple of the chords. By the end of the day, we recorded it, and that's what you hear. I mean, we did it. Everybody put everybody has a piece of that song. We were done with that song, and we're all like, "This is great!" All high five, this is amazing. And Tony goes, "It's missing something. I need a piano." And he went down, 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 down. He added that little melody line that it's in there, but it's not. And when he played it, we all just went, "Now it's done." So see, that's the kind of stuff that is important. But so that's why everyone's at 6 people. So we've really, So even though we did have material, it wasn't what it is now.
And I think it's kind of interesting that you guys were able to get in the same room. You're all working, touring musicians that have been doing this for years. Most people, they're going back and forth through file sharing and whatnot to put it together. It's great that you got in the same room.
And that's the crazy thing. And George, you would think that if it was meant to be, it's going to happen. We were just like, let's just see what happens. And everything lined up. We're like, what about, we'd all pull our calendars out. We go, what about March 10th to the 18th? I'm free. I'm free. And then we get together at Peter's in Atlanta, because Peter and Tony are all Atlanta area based, and Tom and Chasen, our singer, are Boston based, and I live in Nashville, so I can drive to Atlanta. It's like 3.5 hours from my house, not far at all. And it's funny, if you've ever seen Wayne's World on Saturday Night Live, and the skit, the basement that they have, that is exactly where we write music. It looks like we're waiting for, we got to get out of there before Mom gets home, because she's going to yell at us because we're in the living room. And we just set up in there, and it's the most creative, unbelievable atmosphere. It's wonderful. It's our vibe.
And doing something like this with years of experience under your belt, there's a lot less pressure. You don't have the industry on your back. You don't have the record label. You don't have A&R guys in your ear. You could just do it the way that you want it now, right?
That's the best thing. And like Tom said, it's like, we don't have anybody telling us what to do. No one's going to say, I don't hear a single. Well, we didn't write a single. We wrote what we wrote because it's what we feel now. We can write, that's the great thing. We can write this kind of song, that kind of song, this kind of song. And if it's good, we keep it, And that's the crazy thing, George, is all 6 of us are very strong songwriters. So that's the other thing. We were asked a long time in one of our first interviews, how many albums do you guys think you can get out? And I said, I don't know, 30? Because it's like, we have 10 songs on this record. We probably got 8 more already ready to go that are either, we had to stop writing, let's just put it that way, because we're like, look, we've already got the 10 we're going to use. We just got to pull back. Let's concentrate on these, and then we'll, once we get this done, we'll go on to the next one. So we just started working on the next round. So, there's no end in sight, which is cool,
You released a lot from the album before the album came out. You guys had a lot of singles and I guess what they would call singles today. A lot of promotional songs.
Yeah.
All great stuff. Why don't we start talking about some of them? You mentioned Rain as one of your favorites. Tell me how this one came together.
It's just what I did is I have my iPhone. iPhone has the little message thing, you can record stuff, and there's like 238 ideas on there. And I was on a flight one day, and what I would do is I would listen through stuff with my ears in, and I would put like a little asterisk or something on, next to the number, and I'd go back and that morning we were going into Peter's, and I was like, I forgot all about this song. And I was like, I hope I can still remember it. And it just came right to me, and I was like, okay. So I literally walked in, like I said, and I just said, look, I got an idea, guys, but I don't know if it's going to be, we'll just try it out. And it was one of those that you have no idea where it's going to go, which is fun when you think about it, because the idea in my head was not the song that came out. The song that came out, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if you've ever, anyone that's creative, and you've got 5 other guys that's creative, and there's no egos. There's not, this is like our philosophy is there are no wrong ideas, just better ones. And we all are smart enough and good enough to not get butthurt if somebody says, well, I like their idea better. Those days are, we're not 20s anymore. We don't have anything to prove. Tom Hamilton, believe me, doesn't have anything to prove. I can guarantee you that. Tony Brown, Peter, none of us. What we have to prove is we can still do this, because everyone's like, you guys should just quit and retire and go home and, knit things or whatever you do when you're our age. What do you want to stop doing things? Why would you?
Right.
You know, my favorite was Paul McCartney when they asked me if he was ever going to retire, and he said, "Well, wouldn't I have to have a job to retire from?" And it's true. You know, it's a passion. There's a difference between a job and a passion. You know.
Sound of a Train, one of the songs that I enjoyed from the album. I enjoyed the whole album, but I mean, Sound of a Train really picked up my ears. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that one?
That was the first song that Gary and I wrote. Gary Steer is our sixth member. So Gary and I, let me kind of digress here a little bit. So Gary and I were in a band in the 80s together, early 80s. I moved from Chicago to Los Angeles after I graduated high school, and I was in LA about 3 years, and then I just needed a change. LA was just kind of just getting just a little frustrated. So I went out to Atlanta because a friend of mine said there's some really good bands out there that are starting to, the Crows, things had just started to pick up out there. So I went out there. Ended up being in a band. This guy, Gary, was the singer, and the other two guys in the band were the two guys from Blackberry Smoke. So it was kind of like all of us started this project, and then great songwriting, same thing. Everybody's a great writer. So that's why Gary had always stayed in my brain when I'm like, if I ever do anything, I never lost touch with Gary. So when I called him, he was like, I've got this idea. And what we would do is he would record it on his phone, and he would just send it to me. I would add to it, send it back. He would add to it, send it back. And that's the song that we were just like, we think people need to hear this because this is really, really good. And I would write different parts in there, and his melody line came in. And the amazing thing about that song is, so Chasen, our singer, the song that you hear, the vocal that you hear, was his tryout vocal. We refused to change it. His father, he was literally in Florida. His father was passing away, unfortunately, and he was there, in that emotional turmoil that he was going through. And this came up, and his father was so proud of him, and he knew this was going to be something cool. And so when he sung that song, he was doing it more than just for the song. It was for, the spirit. And we were just like, there is no way we would ever re-record your vocal. It is just perfect. So that's how it all started. I mean, when you got that and you listen back and you're like, I think we're going to be okay, boys. I think we got something going here,
Chasen was very impressive throughout the album, his vocals, for someone that I wasn't quite familiar with, but looking at his resume, maybe I'm more familiar with him behind the scenes than in front of the scenes.
Yeah. I think the thing with Chasen is, if you're a little younger than we are, like 20 years, you knew him from the Mickey Mouse Club. I mean, obviously, he would still send us videos once in a while of him and Brittany and Christina and Justin, all in these things, and it's really hilarious. It just cracks me up, because they're all kids, and he's a couple years older. And I think his thing was he was the rock guy. He always wanted to be a rocker, and I don't think Disney really pushed the rock guys. I don't think that was anything that they were interested in. I mean, you should see him dance. The man can dance. The man's an actor. He's done so much acting. He's done so many things, and he'll blow our minds all the time. But he'll come up and he'll say something, and I'll be like, "You did that?" And he'll be like, "Yeah, I'll send you a video." And like, here he is on the X-Files. I'm like, dude, that's nuts, And he's the most. We did an interview with a manager one time, and I love this story because the whole hour-long interview, he just sat there and listened. And then at the end of the interview, the guy said something like, okay, well, let you guys know. And I said, hey, listen, there's another reason you really want to manage us. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, what's that? I go, how many times have you ever done an hour-long interview with a band and the singer hasn't said a single word? And he goes, never. I said, I rest my case. He just sits back and takes his notes. And then when he says something, it's like people listen. That's because he's obviously, very, very, very educated, that boy. He's amazing. So that was a good find. We were very happy when we found him.
Which song was one of the first ones that you put together for this album?
So that was the first one. Train was the first one, Sound of a Train. And then the weekend before we added Tony and Tom, it was just Peter, myself, and Gary Steer, our songwriter. We all met in Atlanta. Gary lives in Chicago, so he flew and I flew in. And I brought in basically Sweet Baby Jesus, which was basically done. The music was all done. Peter had, what songs did Peter have? God, think about that 1 second. Hold on. And Gary had She's a Light. And Gary had She's a Light, and this song was a rock song. And I remember suggesting, I go, what if we did it with acoustic guitars? And everyone was like I said, nobody's like, no, I wrote it this way. And Gary's like, well, let's try it. And it was amazing. Peter wrote Battlefield. That was completely done without lyrics. So Gary is this amazing melody lyricist. So he literally sat down with Sweet Baby Jesus. I played it for him, and it was like it just started flowing out. And in a 3-day weekend, we had 3 songs completely done. That's all it took. And so, I mean, and then you got, like I said, then when Tony, and everybody else would come in, we would move this a little bit here, change this a little bit here, and just be, in awe of how amazing it is when you add, even more talent to it.
The Close Enemies sold out of one of the limited edition vinyls that you had. Are you a vinyl guy yourself?
Man, so my wife and I, about 6 years ago, we were talking about, remember when we used to get vinyl and how amazing it was, and remember how heavy it used to be? You'd grab your little milk crate full of vinyl, and oh my gosh, it took 3 people to carry that darn thing. And so we were like, we should try to get a couple vinyls, because we saw in the stores they were coming back, and so we started buying a few here and there. And so she had a stereo from when she was growing up. She still had it, like a Panasonic, which was very nice. And so we started putting them on. I tell you, George, nothing sounds like that.
Right.
There is nothing like that. And when we did this, the vinyl, they had actually asked us, they said, well, there's 2 ways to do vinyl now. You can actually do it as vinyl, where you actually take the, you carve the metal, and then you have to press it, and you do it, and it's a long involved process, and it costs more money. Or they literally can just print it on top of it like a CD. It's like, we were like, really? You would do that? And they're like, oh yeah, a lot of people do that because it's cost effective. And we were like, ain't no way, because anybody that knows vinyl is going to put that on. They're going to go, where's the low mids? Where's the thing that we know should be there on vinyl? And so we went that extra route, the extra time, and we think it's pretty rocking.
Do you think the whole physical media thing that's kind of making a comeback now is going to sustain, or do you think it'll end up being a niche thing?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a market for our music. We don't know. That's the thing. You should know. Look, you work for KNAC. You're doing it was the biggest radio station ever. From my mind, when I lived in LA, it was the only radio station. And you wake up one day and it's nobody really cares anymore. It does come back. Everything does come back. I turned my daughter on to it. She's 20. She'll be 24 next week. And I think she gets it. She understands it because she's into music, obviously. So I think if you give it a chance, everybody's just so, like my buddy said, it's kind of hard to even, he's a music producer. It's hard to, when you're fighting this thing right here.
Yeah.
It's hard to, it's hard to spend the money and the time and the effort for people who just don't understand it or get it, what do you think? Do you think it's coming back? Do you think it will stay?
So everything that's old is new again. I think right now it's certainly geared towards an older audience, because I think that we sort of embraced streaming and stuff like that because it was easy and convenient. But then for me personally, like, albums would disappear, songs would disappear.
Right.
Articles of pop artists changing their lyrics on the stream on the fly. So it's not even the same song anymore. So to buy something, you own it in its original form now. And I think it will catch on to the younger generation, but maybe not as big as it was in the 80s and 90s.
But the thing that we had going for us, and I suppose our kids would be like, well, that's terrible, is we would go, I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, the home of Cheap Trick, right? And I remember we had this thing called Apple Tree Music. And anyone from Rockford that's listening right now, just their heart just fluttered because they went, oh yeah, Apple Tree. Because we would go into Apple Tree on Friday when you made your $60 from your part-time job after school, and they had the import section. And you would go there and you would buy an album because of the album. I bought the first Iron Maiden record because of the album cover. I had no idea what it sounded like. Nobody did. And you took it home and you were like, this is unbelievable. And by the time all your friends had borrowed it, Apple Tree had 50 of them in stock, and then you bought all of them, and then all of a sudden, you were a fan of that band for life. And it's that grassroots, really cool thing that, you ask about the 5 singles, and the reason we did that is because, unfortunately, Bon Jovi, I do believe, set a record of coming in at number 5 one week, the first week of his album release, and being gone off the top 40 the next week. That just shows you how fast everything comes and goes. So we're like, look, we've spent a year, blood, sweat, and tears, every free minute working on this record. Do we really want to just give it away for a day? So the thought was, well, if we stretch it out, give people a taste of it, then by the time it finally comes out, people already know if they're going to like it. And then, and if it has a little bit more, legs to it, great. If not, we've already talked about doing another one. We're already, like I said, we're working on that already. So, if people want another one, like Tom says, we'll keep doing these until people say they don't want them anymore. So
I went from eliminating all physical media maybe 10 years ago,
yeah,
and then going back to vinyl as it started coming back online, and I have like 1,500 vinyl now.
But so people say, now they're telling us that cassettes are making a comeback.
I can't
and
see
I'm like, I can't see that. What will never make a comeback is 8 tracks. Do you remember 8 tracks? Oh my.
Yes.
I had a Led Zeppelin 2, and I still hear this when I listen to Ramble On. And in the song Ramble On, it would cut to the next track. And so when Rubber Plant said Gollum, the evil one, it faded out right there. And then it went clunk, clunk, and then faded back in, and it went swept up and crept away with it. And it kept going on. So to this day, I still hear that when I hear that song.
That's right.
It's just bizarre.
The cassettes, I think, are because they don't take up much space. You can collect more. I don't think people are playing them because who's got a cassette player? Who makes one?
And they're not going to put them in your car. You show me a car that has a cassette player from the 70s. I'll show you a car that's got a cassette stuck in it.
They don't make cars with CD players anymore.
They don't make cars any. You're right. It's terrible.
So Close Enemies hit the road before the album came out. You played a handful of shows at the end of 25 and the beginning of 2026. Were you happy with the response?
We really were. It was so our first show was in Nashville, and we had no idea. People are actually coming there to hear songs they've never heard before. And we had 150 people there, which was fine. That was great, for people, like I said, that has no idea what to expect. And the first song was Rain, which is great. And that will probably always be our opening song because it's so powerful. And there's that part in it where it stops and it just changes. Da-na-na-na-na, stop. And then it's drums, right? And as soon as we hit that stop, people went, yeah, because they thought the song was over, right? And it was such a huge response. I remember looking at Tom and I got really wide-eyed and I went, I think they like it. And then it kicked back in and they all just went crazy. So we're like, it's really cool. And now, by the end of the touring, people are singing songs back to you, which is really, really cool, But things are good. I mean, our audience has picked up. We've yet to get a bad review. I mean, we keep looking, going, there's got to be a bad review somewhere. And we saw one guy that said we were opening for LA Guns and Tom Kiefer, and the guy said, I decided it'd be better just to go get popcorn during that band. And that cracked me up because I'm like, finally something I can go, okay, we'll have to fix that next time. But he didn't give us any grief. He just said he went to get popcorn. So we're like, you might have missed something pretty good. You don't know.
So did you play mostly songs from the new album, or did you sprinkle in some songs from the bands you guys are associated with?
Oh, yeah, we did. We eventually rolled out 3 Aerosmith songs, 2 BABYS songs. We do Sweet Emotion because that's literally tied to Tom Hamilton for the rest. You can't get away with that one. And we did Sick as a Dog, which Tom wrote, which is a great classic off of Rocks. That's one of the best songs as far as, so we just kill that song. That's tons of fun. And we started doing Seasons of Wither because we wanted to add one more song. And Tom's like, well, I didn't write that. I said, yeah, but that is just a really cool song. And people, as soon as we start playing it, people just go, they lose their mind because it's a great song. And of course with, Tony, we do Head First and Midnight Rendezvous because those songs are iconic. People love all that stuff. So we kind of sprinkle them through,
Are you going to do any more shows in 2026?
We are looking to set up. I just found out today that we're trying to set up a live stream show. I'm not sure when, maybe like May or June. And then starting in October, we're going to tour pretty hardcore till the end of the year. We've got a couple personal things going on. We can't really do anything until after that anyways, till October. So we can do a couple smaller things, and then we will maybe get together, do some more recording. And but yeah, I mean, I mean, that's definitely what we know we have to do, because strange world that we're in, you know? It's like, it's not, you know, they're all like, it's all about social media. And I was just to the point in my life, I just wanted to turn all that stuff off, you know? And they're like, you can't, you know, you gotta be entrenched in it. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Kinda. A lot of it doesn't seem real.
It's not. I mean, I see these bands now, because for whatever reasons I get all these. I go to Facebook because I know people our age mostly are on Facebook. We know that for a fact, and it's totally cool. And I see these bands now, and they're showing them in front of these crowds of like thousands and thousands of people, and I go, these bands don't even exist. It's all AI, and I don't know who's doing this and who's making money off this or how they're making money off it, but I know they're not real. You know, I just saw a Nikki Sixx was stopped at the View, and it showed a picture which was so obviously AI, it's ridiculous. He's standing there like in a stage outfit looking at Whoopi Goldberg, and I'm just going, and most of the people are going, AI, stupid, get over it. But some people are going, good for Nikki, way to stick up with, you know, I was just going, it's unbelievable that it's, like you said, it's all fake, and most people don't even know it anymore. That's what's sad.
Right?
Yeah.
Have you ever dabbled in AI music-wise?
No, really not. And which is cool. I know that we have, and we've done some like pictures of each other that way, I think. But no, nothing that we laugh sometimes because we quote ourselves as the band without clicks, without tracks, without, all we are is tubes on 10. You know, it's all real rock and roll, and we just want to keep it that way. We just want to bring back stuff that everybody I know that I went to school with. My biggest fans are, we call them the 815ers because that's the area code where I grew up in Rockford. They're all just like, you know, they're so supportive because they're just like, they just, you know, love the fact that there's music that we still actually like that's coming out, you know. And a lot of these new bands are actually copying the guys that are in my band, you know. Like some of these younger bands are totally just like right down that lane. So, you know, we're hoping that somewhere along the way we could, you know, do some shows with these guys to, you know, have some fun with them, because I think it'd be a really cool honor for us and for them. You know, it's like, hey, the old guard, you know, looking after the young guard. Let's do this, you know.
I don't think the young guard's going to have the same chances that the old guard had, and unfortunately, we're seeing a lot more old guard retiring and getting out of the business. I personally don't see the replacements 20 years down the road who people are going to go out and see live.
What are we going to do? Because you're right. I mean, there's literally, there's very few left. I mean, and it's dwindling. I mean, not yearly now. It's dwindling like monthly, and pretty soon it'll be weekly, and then it'll be daily. And I'm afraid to even look at Facebook anymore, because, you know, if the band's not doing their 14th retirement tour, they're actually retired.
Well, they could be like Foreigner, and it's just
I was gonna say
crew with no original guys. That's the future of music.
Skinnerd. I mean, it's just, we can go on and on. I mean, but it was funny because I just saw Skinnerd and Foreigner. I mean, I love those guys. Those guys were all, you know, I consider them all friends. But they just, not too long ago, they were doing their last farewell tour. Now it's like they just announced their new tour, and I'm like, okay. I mean, Cher retired 30 years ago. She's still around, I think. So it's like, you know, whatever, you know, get you going. I guess you just never know when you're going to retire. I guess the fact that you don't have to is a good sign, you know.
True. I guess it's good that the music transcends the band.
Yeah.
And it'll live forever.
You know, that's the secret. And if there are people that still, you know, our big thing is, it's really hard. Like my brother-in-law, who's like one of my biggest supporters my whole life, he's always been like telling me, you know, you keep going, it's amazing. And he lives in Atlanta. He was going to come to our last show, and, you know, he's like 78 years old, 75 years old. He's up there, and he said, listen, I would love to come see you play, but it's past my bedtime or whatever, you know. And I was like, that's the new norm right there. So, you know,
absolutely.
But I get it, because it's almost past my bedtime, you know. But this is like I said, this all just happened because I woke up one day and I was alive, and I was like, you know what? I still think there's people that need to hear this, and it's wonderful, you know. I think it's you know, like you said, I mean, we're still able to do it. Tom's doing it. Tony is a machine. That guy. I mean, usually the drummers are the first to go. because it's, you've been beating on things and it's tough on your body. And I remember before he booked a single show, I said, "Hey, Tony," I said, "how many shows are you good for?" Because I need to know before I tell the booking agent, book one a month. What are you good for? And he tells me 2. And I go, "Okay, 2 a week, we can do that." And he goes, "No, a day." He was like, matinee and show. And I laughed. I think he's serious, because that guy, I mean, we'll do 3 in a row and I'll just be like, "Wow, I'm tired." And he'd be like, "Wish we'd doing another one." I love my band. Those guys are amazing. It's, again, none of us have to be doing this. We're just having fun. That's the secret,
Absolutely. So outside of Close Enemies, what else are you doing in the music business?
Well, I'm actually in Mexico City as we speak. Like I told you, in 19 something, I decided that my band got dropped and I was done with music. So I started doing studio work in LA, and I hooked up with Melissa Etheridge, and I ended up doing a record with her, and she asked me to be her guitar tech. And I said, "Yeah, I don't know if I want to do this." And she said, "Yeah, well, just come out for a while and try it." So I was her guitar tech. And then after about 2 months, she realized, of course, I could play. And she said, "Look, I need a piano for this part. Would you play piano?" And I said, "Yeah, I can play piano." So I started playing piano on a song, then 2 songs and 3 songs. Then it was like, "Could you play guitar on this song and that song?" So for like 10 years, I was her guitar tech, and I would play keyboards and guitar during the show. So that was really cool, because I don't have any record company issues. No, I just got, I got my check every week, and I was doing what I loved to do, and it was really fun. And, we did TV shows, and I got to be on the show. I wasn't, hidden away, and so it was fun. And then I just kept doing that, and I just kept getting bigger and bigger gigs. And I worked with Joe Perry for 10 years, which was amazing. And Rick Nielsen, I worked with him from Cheap Trick, and he got me the Joe gig. And then I've been with Angus Young for AC/DC for 12 years now, and I did Ronnie Wood with the Stones. I mean, I just, I've had an amazing career. And, I'm in Mexico City. Like I said, we have an AC/DC show on Tuesday, and I'm going to hand him a guitar every 5 or 6 songs, and I'm going to see 85,000 people going berserk. Speaking of people still, selling lots of tickets. So it's very, it's good. Like I said, I love the playing part. It's really amazing, but I also love the other thing I do, because I get to create things and have things that just work and sound great. And, it's a blessing. So it's very cool.
With all the years you've been in the business, have you gotten other offers to play with established bands that you had to pass on?
Yeah, a couple of them, actually. A couple gigs that I was kind of often. And there was one, well, I actually did one, but I still am not allowed to say who it was. So that sucks, but it was cool. That was fun. In the 80s, I can say this, another thing, I really don't, I hate talking about cats sometimes, but I played keyboards for a couple different bands, but I didn't play a single note of keyboards. It was always backing vocals or this or that, because that's what you did back then, because everybody wanted it to be perfect. That was the beginning of, you want background vocals bigger and louder, and the show's bigger and louder, and so that was the only method you really had to do back then. So anytime in the 80s that you would see a drummer with headphones on, usually it was because we had to stay close to tempo,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be a little weird. But so I did stuff like that, and there was a couple things that I did, and I produced a couple bands. I've written for a bunch of bands. It's just, I've always been very blessed and very, I've never ever had to look for work in 30 years. It's like if I've turned down more things than I've accepted. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's quite the blessing for sure.
Well, Trace, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new self-titled album by Close Enemies is out now through Virgin Music Group. Fantastic album, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it today.
But listen, I appreciate it so much, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem, and I'll see you out there when you get back to the East Coast.
You got it, buddy. We're looking to be. I think we're booking stuff in the East Coast right now, so I will. We'll let you know when you need to come out.